Shri Krishna Caitanya Prabhu Nityananda Shri Advaita Gadadhara Shivasadi Gaur Bhakta Vrinda Shri Krishna Caitanya Prabhu Nityananda Shri Advaita Gadadhara Shivasadi Gaura Bhakta Vrinda Hare Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama 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 Hare 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 Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama 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 Hare 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 Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama 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 Hare 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 Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama 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 Hare 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 Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama 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 Hare 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 Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama 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 Hare 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 Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama 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 Hare 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 Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama 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 Hare 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 Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama 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 Hare 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 Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama 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 Hare Hare Jayam Vishnupad Paramahamsa Puri Rajakacharya Ashtotar Satashri Srimad A.C. Bhaktivedanta Swami Prabhupada Ki Jai Anantakoti Vaishnava Vrinda Ki Jai Namacharya Srila Haridas Thakur Ki Jai Prem Se Kaho Shri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Shri Advaita Gadadhar Shivasari Gaur Bhaktivinoda Ki Jai Shri Radha Krishna Gopa Gopinath Shyama Kunda Radha Kunda Giri Govardhan Ki Jai Shri Vrindavan Dham Ki Jai Shri Navadvip Mayapur Dham Ki Jai Ganga Mayi Ki Jai Jamuna Mayi Ki Jai Bhakti Devi Ki Jai Tulsi Devi Ki Jai Samaveta Bhaktivinoda Ki Jai. All glories to the assembled devotees. All glories to the assembled devotees. All glories to the assembled devotees. Gaur Premanande, Hari Hari Bol. Hare Krishna, and welcome everyone for Sri Caitanya Caritamrita, with His Holiness Jayadvaita Swami. It is Thursday, May 1st, 2025 in New York, and we are reading in the 13th chapter of the Adi-lila, the Advent of Lord Sri Caitanya Mahaprabhu, and we are now up to verse number 81. We've been reading about the siblings in Caitanya Mahaprabhu's family, how his parents had 7 daughters who died very soon after their birth, and then most recently of his elder brother Vishvarupa, and now we're hearing of his appearance. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Mishra kahi shachistane deki anarita. Jyotirmaya deha geha Lakshmi adhisthita. Jagannath Mishra said to Shachimata, I see wonderful things. Your body is effulgent, and it appears as if the goddess of fortune were now staying personally in my home. Just to give some context for this, the last verse we read was in the month of January in the year 1406 of the Shaka era, AD 1485, Lord Krishna entered the bodies of both Jagannath Mishra and Shachi. We can move on unless Maharaj would like to address something from text 81.
No, we're good. Thank you.
Text 82. Yahan tahan sarvaloka karaye samang ghari pataya deya dhanavastradhan. Anywhere and everywhere I go, all people offer me respect, even without my asking. They voluntarily give me riches, clothing, and paddy. Purport. A Brahmana does not become anyone's servant. To render service to someone else is the business of the Shudras. A Brahmana is always independent because he is a teacher, spiritual master, and advisor to society. The members of society provide him with all the necessities of life. In the Bhagavad Gita, the Lord says he has divided society into 4 divisions: Brahmana, Kshatriya, Vaishya, and Shudra. A society cannot run smoothly without this scientific division. A Brahmana should give good advice to all the members of society. A Kshatriya should look after the administration, maintaining law and order in society. Vaishyas should produce and trade to meet all the needs of society, whereas Shudras should render service to the higher sections of society, the Brahmanas, Kshatriyas, and Vaishyas. Jagannath Mishra was a Brahmana. Therefore, people would send him all bodily necessities, money, cloth, grain, and so on. While Lord Chaitanya was in the womb of Shachimata, Jagannath Mishra received all these necessities of life without asking for them. Because of the presence of the Lord in his family, everyone offered him due respect as a Brahmana. In other words, if a Brahmana or Vaishnava sticks to his position as an eternal servant of the Lord and executes the will of the Lord, there is no question of scarcity for his personal maintenance or the needs of his family. Om Jnanatimidandhasya Jnananjana Shalakaya Chakshurun Militam Yena Tasmai Shri Gurave Namaha Vanchakalpatarubhyascha Kripa Sindhubhya Evacha Patitanam Pavanebhyo Vaishnavebhyo Namo Namaha. Jai Shri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Shri Advaita Gadadhara Shivashadi Gaur Bhaktavinda. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. There's a place in one of the purports in the 7th canto, chapter entitled Ideal Family Life, where Narada Muni is speaking to Yudhishthira Maharaj. And in one of those purports, I can't remember the number, Prabhupada says something, I'm not saying verbatim, but he's saying that to earn one's livelihood, therefore, is not a problem. The real problem is how to get free of the repetition of birth, death, old age, and disease. This level of faith is what is required of a Brahmana. And in this purport, as in so many other purports, Prabhupada points this out. Not just a Brahmana, but someone who's a Vaishnava, a devotee of the Lord, is expected to have full faith that the Lord will protect him in any and all circumstances. I was thinking of Ananyas Chintayantoman, Ye Jana Paryupashate, Tesham Nityabhayuktanam, Yogakshemam Vahamyaham. Krishna is speaking about his devotees, how they have no other objective, no other topic of interest. And Krishna says, for those people, I preserve what they have. I provide what they lack. And there's no need for other endeavor. But we find that sometimes even in our devotional community, it is rare to see someone who operates on this platform. We see devotees with that level of faith, and we may think, how can they do that? They have no other objective or topic of interest. I was thinking of my father in this regard. One time I had to take him to a doctor's appointment. I said, I'll stay in the car. I'll chant while you're going to be on the table, and I'll come in and get you when you're out of the procedure. So I was doing it. And he said, well, what are you going to do with it? And I said, I explained chanting to him, or tried to explain it. And I said, yes, this is something I do 1,700 times a day. I say this prayer. I said, so 1,700 times? I pray every day, but not 1,700 times. So this is not Ananyas. This is Bahu Anyas, because my father is interested in professional golf and his cats and feeding his birds and his wife and his house and his yard in New York and in Florida. So this is the situation. But here we hear of Jagannath Mishra. People are just giving him things without him asking for them. He says in the purport, this is due to the Lord being present in his family. But Prabhupada further says that if a Brahmin or Vaishnava sticks to his position as an eternal servant of the Lord and executes the will of the Lord, there's no question of scarcity for his personal maintenance or the needs of his family. So this is certainly something to aspire for and take seriously. Maharaj, we'd love to hear from you on this point. Hare Krishna.
Namo Vishnu Padaya Krishna Prishtaya Bhutade Srimate Bhakti Vedanta Swami Namani Namaste Saraswati Deve Gaudavani Pracharini Nirvishesha Shunyavadi Prashtite. And this is wonderful. There is no scarcity, and the Bhagavatam teaches us that. The Prabhupada said the elephant is getting its ton of sugar, the ant is getting its grains of sugar. So there's some arrangement in material nature already for sustaining every living being. In addition to which, Krishna is there to look after his devotees. So from that point of view, what is the problem? Prabhupada said Grahasta invents some simple means to earn his livelihood, and Krishna helps him. So but as Kendra indicated, that requires a certain standard of faith. If we don't have that standard, then we'll be in anxiety. We'll be in anxiety. But that quotation is cited from Srila Prabhupada by Jagatani Mataji, that I have no problem. If there's any problem, it's Krishna's problem. Let him deal with it. He'll deal with it. But this is a fact. especially for those who are preaching, and that's the business of a Brahmin, is to teach, to preach. Prabhupada said Krishna is the financier. And he gave the example that an ordinary person, how much did the presidential candidates spend on having themselves glorified? Naturally, it's their business to want their good qualities to be broadcast throughout the world. So they pay. Krishna also, he's the origin of that. He wants to be glorified all over the world. So if we serve Krishna in that way, then what is the difficulty? Krishna will pay. Send the bills on. And we've seen that devotees who are fully absorbed in preaching Krishna consciousness, they may be brahmacharis, or they may be sannyasis, or they may be grihastas. Krishna provides what they need. Somehow everything is there. Prabhupada told another story that there was a Kumbh Mela, and one old lady was there, and she was seeing, so many millions of people who descend on the Kumbh Mela, and she was crying. So her son or a person like that asked her, "Mother, why are you crying?" "No, how will I feed so many people? How will they all be, not maybe how will I feed, but how will they all be fed?" So the young man laughed. He said, "Mother, just wait till evening." So evening came. "Mother, where have all those people gone?" They all had some place. There were must have been cooking fires everywhere, and everybody gets something. So this is Krishna's arrangement. Before the child is born, Prabhupada's pointed out there's no milk in the mother's breast. And as soon as the child is born, the milk is there. So these arrangements are there by Krishna. So that verse was quoted yesterday, I think, that Dhanadur Madandan, and Krishna is providing sufficient supply of everything. Why should the kavis, the learned persons, flatter some puffed up materialist? So the devotee has that confidence. And the Brahmin, after all, he doesn't become anyone's servant. That means he doesn't really have a fixed source of income. He's not on salary. He doesn't have guaranteed income. But he knows that Krishna will provide. That's the characteristic of a Brahmin. I don't have to go pick up the business of a servant. In an emergency, he may take up the work of a kshatriya or even a vaishya, but he never becomes a shudra. And in part, that's due to his confidence that Krishna will provide. All right, Hare Krishna.
Right. Gupta Prabhu writes, Hare Krishna Maharaj, modern life is considerably different to 500 years ago. So how to determine what present day, quote, needs are for a family?
Well, that we have to see. 500 years ago or today, the same principle holds, that Krishna is maintaining the devotees. Krishna is providing the true necessities of life. So if one has to be, first of all, what do we need? Our needs should be actually what we need, not what we want, not what we're told we should have, but what we actually need. That's the first thing. And the second thing is to be a little intelligent. If we don't spend more than we need, that's quite something. One can have enough of everything. Usually our problem is that we spend more. Someone says, well, life in New York City is so expensive. Just a flat is $3,000, $4,000. Yeah, but why do you have to live in New York City? Is that a need? And we know that one can move out of the city and at once reduce one's expenses dramatically. Not everyone can move out, but one may just say, why should I live in New York City and work? Yes, I can get a job in New York City, but so much of my income is going to go just for the cost of living in New York City. And I could live more simply elsewhere with less expense and less work. So is that among my needs that I have to live in the city of New York, for example? Simplify, simplify, simplify. And I can't say exactly what someone's needs may be, but simplify and simplify. Hare Krishna.
Vijay Krishna Prabhu writes, if a Brahmana should give good advice to all the members of society, my question is, who gives good advice to the Brahmanas?
Krishna. The Vedic literature, the spiritual master, sadhus, they give good advice to the Brahmins. Just like our devotees are supposed to be trained as Brahmins, it's not just that they get a Brahmin thread hung on their shoulder and then they think, yes, now I know everything. They have to hear from higher authorities, from Guru, from Shastra, from sadhus.
Saraswati Mataji writes, Pranam Param Puja Maharaj and all the Vaishnavas. We know the pure devotees, like 6 Goswamis, Sri Madhavendra Puri, were disconnected from any needs of the body, like eating, sleeping, etc., and some want to imitate their behavior. Srila Vrindavan Das Thakur said, these impostors are Danga Vipras. So for most of us, it seems impossible to be disconnected from the needs of body. So this is a failing. I understand we are to depend on Krishna, but do we need to be disconnected from bodily needs in one lifetime?
What is that? A moment. Yuktahara viharascha yukta cheshtasya karmasu. Yukta swapnavabodhasya yogo bhakti dukkha. Bhagavad Gita once says, Krishna says that one should be regulated. It doesn't mean I won't eat, I won't sleep. Nidrahara vihara kadi vijito. The Goswamis conquered these things, but even they would sleep a little bit. They would take a little bit of buttermilk, but practically nothing, hardly eating. But we're not them. We can't do what they could do. But we can also, what's the word? Regulate. One time I was in Detroit. I was traveling around with Satsuri Maharaj in the library party. We were also giving talks to universities. And I said to Srila Prabhupada, we were sitting, I think, on the side of the canal there. I said to Srila Prabhupada, it's so hard to convince the students to give up sense gratification. And Prabhupada said, we don't say give up, but regulate. Regulate. He probably gave the example, too much salt and you can't eat, too little salt you can't eat. So it has to be regulated. And Prabhupada also said the elephant has to eat for the elephant, the ant has to eat for the ants. So it's not that we all have the same standard, here's your quota, and you have to live within that. The Nakul and Sahadev could eat according to their standard, and Bhima has to eat according to his standard. There are different, we have different bodies, and what constitutes the minimum for me may not be minimum for the next person. So we don't say become completely disconnected, don't eat, don't sleep, but regulate. And less is better. and will become disconnected from the body by becoming connected with Krishna. That's the more important thing. Not that we've taken a vow, I'll starve, but the more important thing is to chant and to hear and to serve. Then one becomes disconnected. Prabhupada gave that example, I think. When a man goes to the file cabinet so many times during the day, businessman, but if you ask him how many times did you go to the file cabinet, he's not even thinking about it, because he's absorbed in thinking about the details of the deals and the business. The business of opening up and closing the file cabinet is inconsequential or just ignored. So the person who's engaged in the service of Krishna, the more he's engaged, the less he thinks about the body, because it's not his focus. We all have experience of that when we're a little idle and so on. Then we'll eat more, we'll sleep more, and when we're fully absorbed in preaching or some devotional service, then we don't want to eat, or we forget about eating because we're absorbed. Hare Krishna.
Praveen Krishna Prabhu writes, one devotee was arguing that Prabhupada had given Brahman Diksha to his disciples, who were full-time devotees and not working as salaried workers. Did he give Brahman Diksha to any salaried worker, Sudra occupation of the outside world?
Yes, he did. The example that comes to my mind, it's just because I happened to be thinking of him. Gopal Krishna Goswami was at the time he joined, he was working for Colgate Palmolive Company. He was involved in their marketing department. So he was a salaried person, but Prabhupada gave him Brahman Diksha. I don't think it was, I'm sure it was before he left the company. Thinking about Gopal Krishna Maharaj, there was a big but anyway, Prabhupada was leaving from Kennedy Airport, going somewhere, and the devotees had reserved the VIP room in the terminal for Prabhupada. He was an evening flight going somewhere, early evening. And so we all hacked into that room, and at some point, Gopal Krishna Prabhu at the time came in and offered obeisances. And he said, I'm so sorry, Swamiji, for coming in my karmi clothes. He was dressed in suit and tie, coming straight from work. Prabhupada said, not karmi, he said karma yogi. Anashrita karma palam karyam karma korotiya. Sasanyasi cha yogi cha na niragnir na chakriya. The person who's engaged in his who's anashrita karma, who's unattached to the fruits of work, and who performs his prescribed duties in Krishna consciousness, is the actual sannyasi, not the person who's not doing it. So yes, and there are many examples, of course, where Prabhupada gave. Shrey Rishi comes to mind. He was a highly posted man in Arthur Young accountancy firm. He opened up the Tehran branch of the company. So he was certainly on a salary, but Prabhupada gave him Brahman Diksha. And there must have been so many examples. Hare Krishna.
Rai Gupta Prabhu writes, thank you, Maharaj. Prabhupada didn't tell his early disciples to leave their jobs. He encouraged them to keep working to raise money for his fledgling society. Please comment on that situation. Prabhupada didn't say just serve in the temple and Krishna will provide everything.
Krishna supplied those devotees. Prabhupada had rent checks and so on to had to support the society. So Brahmananda, Rupanuga, Satsvarup were all working. So yes, we can use the income. Don't quit the job. You continue, and we'll use that money for Krishna service. So Prabhupada had saw that, well, Krishna sent these boys who were working, so why tell them to stop? We will engage their earnings in Krishna's service. From one point of view, if we have to draw a lesson, we can say that Prabhupada put Krishna consciousness above Varnashram. According to Varnashram, this is Sudra business, they're working for a salary. But from Prabhupada's point of view, now they're bringing in money that we're using. We're spreading the Krishna consciousness. So that trumps any consideration of Varnashram. Adi Krishna.
Saraswati Mataji writes, "Thank you, Maharaj. I am a creature of comfort and don't like stepping outside zone of comfort as I am set in my ways. So is this a big problem?"
I can't say. I don't know what your details of your life are. If we're just creatures of comfort and we sit in our flats and putter about and don't do anything, then yes, that's a problem. If we're comfortably situated and in that position of comfort, we do a lot of service, then it's not so much a problem. All right, we'll take a little comfort, but with that comfort, we can serve. This is what with this level of comfort, it's easy for me to do service. So then it's nice. But if it's just comfort and no service, then it's not so nice. Hare Krishna.
Rari Gupta Prabhu writes, "Thank you, Maharaj."
Maharaj, I found it very interesting. You were just saying how Prabhupada put devotional service or Krishna consciousness above the considerations of Varnashrama. And as evidence from the lively discussion on this purport, when he says things like, to render service to someone else is the business of the Shudras. So when he makes a statement like that, is that something that we can relegate to, oh, he's just talking about Varnashrama?
Just before I answer your question, I was reminded while you were asking it of the occasion where Prabhupada took where there was some microphone that was detached from its stand, and Prabhupada took his Brahmin thread and used it to attach the microphone so that the preaching could go on. So it's instructive.
Can you clarify that story, Guru Maharaj?
Excuse me?
Used the Can you clarify that story? He used the thread on his body or a separate
I recall
thread?
either he did or directed some disciple to take his thread, but I think one way or the other, but the idea was that the Brahmin thread was used for a higher purpose of preaching. That, all right, we know it's a Brahmin thread, but preaching comes first. Doesn't mean we all trivialize the Brahmin thread, but Prabhupada had that discretion that, what is this Brahmin thread? It'll hold the microphone. It's wonderful.
Amazing.
It's a wonderful sign of Krishna consciousness. That same thing is there with Prabodhananda, not Prabodhananda Saraswati, Sarvabhauma Bhattacharya, where Chaitanya Mahaprabhu brings him Mahaprasadam early in the morning, and he at once accepts it. Although he was a Paka Brahmin, a Brahmin should first brush his teeth and take his bath and all of that. And Chaitanya Mahaprabhu says something, but it's no. It's Mahaprasadam. I have to honor it at once. And he quoted Sarvabhauma quoted some verse to that effect. And Chaitanya Mahaprabhu thought it was wonderful that this person who was a smarta Brahmin, now he sees that this is Jagannath's prasadam. Everything else can go to hell. But then there was, maybe that answers your question, Kendra, about the importance of Varnashram and so on. It's not that it doesn't matter. Prabhupada spoke to the importance of Varnashram. And why is he putting in the book? After all, who cares? If it doesn't matter, why even mention it? And we saw from Prabhupada's personal life, I think I mentioned it, that he was reluctant to accept the job offer from Dr. Bose because it was, that's a Shudra position, salaried. No, you'll be like my son. So then, all right, then I'll take it. So Prabhupada does mention it, but all of these things, one weighs.
And at the top of everything, the highest principle is engagement in Krishna's service.
That's the most important thing. Yes. Hare Krishna.
Praveen Krishna Prabhu writes, we see various Brahmin pujaris in India attach their keys to the thread.
Oh yes, that's practically standard.
Murari Gupta Prabhu writes, I heard that Allen Ginsberg offered his shoelace, and Prabhupada told Nara Narayan Prabhu to give his Brahmin thread.
I haven't heard that story before.
Saraswati Mataji writes, I heard Srila Prabhupada say in a class that one Brahmana was pulling Dela.
Yeah, a card. Yeah, because Brahmin is by occupation, really, by qualities and work. So you're claiming to be a Brahmin, but you're working at, pulling a cart, which is really Shudra business. So according to Varna, but you're claiming Brahmin and you're wearing a sacred thread as a matter of, what's the word? Status. So, what is that? Antaji. You don't know anything, but you're wearing a thread and you're pulling a chain. So yes, Prabhupada did give it some, it's not meaningless, that anything can be anything. And no, Varnashram organizes society. So as far as possible, therefore Prabhupada started New Vrindavan and wanted to have communities like that, so that his disciples wouldn't have to be working in a Shudra jobs in a degraded society, producing needless necessities, but could raise their own food and so on. But that's a superior occupation, although it may seem that I'm giving up an important job to grow vegetables. But the Vaishya position is higher than that of the Shudra. And a person who's working on salary is not exactly on the Vaishya platform. It's considered Shudra.
Radesha Prabhu writes, King of Puri, sweeping street for Lord Jagannath.
Doing what?
Sweeping street for Lord Jagannath.
Sweeping street, I see. Well, Well, that's a different thing entirely. The to be doing service for Lord Jagannath. Prabhupada said that. There was Prabhupada was carrying some something, I think of some receptacle for stool and urine or something on his head. Prabhupada said that doesn't mean that he's Shudra. So if we're doing service for the spiritual master, some of the devotees every day, what is that? Sri Vigra Mandira Marjanado. The devotees are cleaning the temple, mopping the floors. Who mops floors? But no, Brahmins mop floors. Vaishnavas mop floors for the service of the Lord. That's not a Shudra occupation at all.
Gupta Prabhu writes, it was in the Prabhupada Memories series.
And it's bona fide. I'd have to look at the details. Shoelace and maybe someone would like to look in the database and find the story first.
Praveen Krishna Prabhu writes, so our Brahmin Diksha is not exactly to establish that he is now a Brahmin by occupation, but Brahmana by behavior. Is this correct?
He's better than Brahmin. That was the point. The Brahmins are still under the three modes of material nature. The Brahmins are supposed to be in the mode of goodness. But the Vaishnavas are engaged in the service of the Lord. Sagunan Samiti Caitanya. Prabhuya Kopate. They're on the spiritual platform. The Vaishnavas are higher than the Brahmins. That's the whatever their occupation, they're actually higher than the Brahmins. The Trigunya Vishya Veda Nishtragun. The members of the Varnashram system follow the principles of occupational duties according to the modes of nature. But Krishna urges Arjuna, you become transcendental to the modes of nature. Of course, Arjuna was still to fight because that was his occupation. But by fighting for Krishna, he would be beyond the modes of nature. So this Brahmin thread is not exactly the symbol of becoming a Brahmin by occupation. It's a symbol of becoming a Vaishnava who's in a higher position. That was the point that Bhaktisiddhanta Saraswati Thakur wanted to make by offering this Brahmin initiation to the devotees. This is what we've heard.
Saraswati Mataji writes, my father had been a small businessman his entire life and refused to work for anyone else even when we were struggling newly arrived in UK. Some thought he had false pride, but it wasn't that.
Yeah. This is the standard that if I'm a Vaishya, then I don't accept the business of the Shudra. All right, let me struggle. What is that? Paradharmat svinustitat. Swadharmam janashraya. Paradharma payava. Better to perform one's own duties, even if imperfectly, than someone else's duties perfectly well. To perform someone else's duties is dangerous. Hare Krishna.
Praveen Krishna Prabhu writes, the devotee argues that the associates of Lord Chaitanya, who were Sudras, were beyond Brahmanas as Vaishnavas, but they didn't artificially need a stamping by Brahmin Diksha that now they are a Brahmin.
No, they don't need it. They don't need anything. But the acharyas want to make a point, so they do it. Otherwise, he doesn't need it.
Hare Krishna. Thank you, he says.
Hare Krishna.
I think we have some more time. We can move on to our next set of verses. I wanted to see if Radhesha Prabhu is able to read or not. Since I'm not hearing immediately, then perhaps not. Maharaj, do you have someone there with you who would like to read?
I do. I think Philip might be quite willing to, whoops, to read. How are we doing, Philip?
Thank you, Prabhu. If you can, 83 through 86, I think we can make it through. It's one short purport and a few without.
Sachi kahe muni dekon akasha upare, divya murti loka sabha kiena stuti kare. Sachi Mata told her husband, I see wonderfully brilliant human beings appearing in outer space as if offering prayers. Purport. Jagannath Mishra was honored by everyone on the earth and was supplied with all necessities. Similarly, Mother Sachi saw many demigods in outer space offering prayers to her because of Lord Caitanya Mahaprabhu's presence in her womb. Jagannatha Mishra Kare Swapna Yede Kila Jyotir Maya Dhamma Mora Hridaye Pashila. Jagannath Mishra then replied, in a dream, I saw the effulgent abode of the Lord enter my heart. Amara Hridaya Haite Gela Tomara Hridaye Hena Bushi Janmi Bena Kona Mahasaye. From my heart it entered your heart. I therefore understand that a great personality will soon take birth. Itabali dunherahe harasita hana shalagrama seva kare visheshahariya kariya. After this conversation, both husband and wife were very jubilant, and together they rendered service to the household Shalagram Shila. Purport. Especially in every Brahmin's house, there must be a Shalagram Shila to be worshipped by the Brahmana family. This system is still current. People who are Brahmanas by caste, who are born in a Brahmana family, must worship the Shalagram Shila. Unfortunately, with the progress of Kali Yuga, the so-called Brahmanas, although very proud of taking birth in Brahmana families, no longer worship the Shalagram Shila. But actually, it has been a custom since time immemorial that a person born in a Brahmana family must worship the Shalagram Shila in all circumstances. In our Krishna-conscious society, some of the members are very anxious to introduce worship of the Shalagram Shila, but we have purposely refrained from introducing it because most of the members of the Krishna consciousness movement do not originally come from families of the Brahmana caste. After some time, when we find that they are actually situated strictly in the line of Brahminical behavior, Shalagram Shila worship will be introduced. In this age, the worship of the Shalagram Shila is not as important as the chanting of the holy name of the Lord. That is the injunction of the Shastra. Hare Nama, Hare Nama, Hare Nama eva kevalam, kalo nasteva, nasteva, nasteva gatir anyata. Srila Jiva Goswami's opinion is that by chanting the holy name offenselessly, one becomes completely perfect. Nevertheless, just to purify the situation of the mind, Worship of the deity in the temple is also necessary. Therefore, when one is advanced in spiritual consciousness or is perfectly situated on a spiritual platform, he may take to the worship of the Shalagram Shila. The transference of the Lord from the heart of Jagannath Mishra to the heart of Sachimata is explained by Srila Bhaktisiddhanta Saraswati Thakur as follows. It is to be concluded that Jagannath Mishra and Sachimata are Nitya Siddhas, ever pure associates of the Lord.
Will we finish this purport? Will we have enough time, do you think, Kendra?
Let me look at this, Maharaj. Maybe I didn't see how long it went on. Oh, it's quite much longer than I thought. Let's pause and we can pick up more next time.
All right, I have a question.
Question.
You had mentioned before that we have the two different paths. I forget the names, Panchratrika and
Bhagavad Gita.
And I had read that Prabhupada said on the way to Krishna that just by chanting this Hare Krishna mantra, gradually the mind will come under our control. And he also said, or rather here he says, the chanting of the Hare Krishna mantra is sufficient, but still to purify the mind, we do the deity worship. And I suppose I'm just to go back to that discussion, curious. The mantra is as powerful as we need, but we still have, he's mentioning Shalagram worship and deity worship.
Yeah. The Prabhupada, that's cited in the Kirtan book, that Prabhupada said we have to chant in the process. We have to chant in the process. So the chanting is effective, but will we chant purely? Will we chant nicely? So one can say, well, you can get up any time of the day or night and chant. You don't have to follow any kind of a schedule. But then we know devotees will be in the mode of ignorance, and their chanting will be slovenly. They won't chant nicely. So it's part of a process. You get up early, you take your bath, you attend the Mangal Arati, you hear the Bhagavatam, then you chant your, if you haven't already, you chant your mantras. So the whole process works together. The whole process works together. So from one point of view, yes, the mantra is enough. And if we don't have anything else, any other paraphernalia, just we'll chant Hare Krishna. We don't, yes. But this whole process is meant to work as a unit. So the Brahminical life, cleanliness, hearing, chanting. Therefore, these two things. So if we're preaching, you don't have to do anything else. But still, it's recommended that if we want to stay nicely situated in preaching, nicely situated in hearing, then we should follow these rules and regulations. Nectar of devotion is there. You should do this, 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 this. The Paramahamsas don't have to do anything. They can just think of Krishna or chant Hare Krishna. But the rest of us require these rules and regulations so that we'll stay on the platform of chanting Hare Krishna. Okay.
Yeah, it's interesting. All these things we're chanting, but all of the additional items of worship are putting us on a platform where the chanting actually reaches that pure platform.
And you can see why proof texting has its limitations. Somebody digs through the books and says, you don't need to chant. You don't need to do anything else but chant. But then you see that no, these other things are needed. You can dig through Shastra and find, you don't need a spiritual master. The mantra is self-sufficient. Then you read more carefully, you see, no, spiritual masters need. So proof texting is not everything, just pulling out a quote. One has to be trained in the process by a bona fide spiritual master and the association of devotees.
I have a little concern when I was in a class Wednesday, Tulsi Prabhu and Pandava Prabhu do, they were talking about, you know, you can chant with the aim of just impersonal liberation. And they mentioned that pure love of Krishna, it's like a roller coaster of emotions. And there are people who go through the whole process very perfectly, but their aim is to neutralize all emotions, spiritual and material. And it kind of got a little worrying myself. How do we root that part out where we can even do deity worship and Shalagram worship and somehow be cultivating or just not removing perhaps those desires?
No, deity worship is, and not removing the desires for liberation and so on. Yeah, that we need to hear again and again. We need to cleanse our hearts. Jnana karmadhyanavrita. Tendency for karma is there, the tendency is there for Gyan. So we have to be purified by the association of devotees, by the holy name. Pray to Krishna, please free my heart from this Jnana karmadi. Because these are impediments. Karma kanda, Jnana kanda, Kevala Visharbanda. You're like two poison pots. Karma kanda, Jnana kanda. Get free from.
Jai Maharaj, thank you very much. And thank you, Philip Prabhu, for reading. I think we can pause with our reading and with our Q&A and pick up with there are a couple leftover questions and significant leftover text. Pick it up next week. There's certainly plenty more to be mined from that. And just so I'm clear, Philip Prabhu, we're starting next time with it is to be understood that Shachi Devi did not become pregnant as an ordinary woman. That
The transference of the Lord from the heart of Jagannath Mishra, I think that's the natural starting place.
Oh, okay. Good. We'll start there. And yes, so it's nice to see Vijay Krishna Prabhu here after some time. So if he would like to lead Kirtan, that would be just great.
Yes, Kendra Prabhu, can you hear me?
Very clearly, sir.
And my Mridanga.
Make sure your original sound is on.
Okay, no Mridanga, I'm sorry. I'll be clapping. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare, Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare. Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare. Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare. Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare. Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare. Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare. Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare.
Jai Om Vishnupad Purnamansa Paripraja Kacharya Stotra Sri Srimad A.C. Bhakti Vedanta Swami Maharaj Prabhupada Ki Jai, Ananta Koti Vaishnava Vrinda Ki Jai, Nam Acharya Sri Haridas Thakur Ki Jai, Prem Se Kaho Shri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda, Shri Advaita Gadadhar Shri Vasadi Gaur Bhakti Vrinda Ki Jai, Sri Sri Radha Krishna Gop Gopinath, Sham Kun Radha Kun Giri Govardhan Ki Jai, Vrindavan Dham Ki Jai, Navadev Dham Ki Jai, Jagannath Puri Ki Jai, Ganga Ki Jai, Jamanamani Ki Jai, Tulsi Devi Ki Jai, Bhakti Devi Ki Jai, Samaveta Bhakti Vrinda Ki Jai. All glories to the assembled devotees. All glories to the assembled devotees. All glories to the assembled devotees. Gaur Premanande, Hari Hari Bol.
Hari Hari Bol. Thank you, Maharaj. Thank you, Vijay Krishna Prabhu. And thank you, everyone, for being here. We'll pick up with the rest of the purport next week, along with the questions that were left over. Plenty more room for discussion there. Shri Caitanya Caritamrita Ki Jai, Srila Prabhupada Ki Jai, His Holiness Jayadvaita Maharaj Ki Jai.
Samaveta Bhakti Vrinda Ki Jai.
Jai.
Premanande, Hari Hari Bol.
Hari Hari Bol.
Thank you, Maharaj. Good to see you. Hare Krishna.
Thank you, Kendra Prabhu. Thank you to all. Hare Krishna.